Welcome everybody to the Chess Lab. I just played a tournament. I'm gonna try to translate it in my head. Italian Team Championship of chess, of course. What do you think I do? So yeah, let's just look at the games. 5 rounds. This is round 1. Now, before I go into it, some of these rounds were absolutely wild, like insanity. But anyways, I play d4 in the first game. I'm playing with the white pieces. e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop. Why did I say bishop? Knight c3, knight f6, and here I played d4. This is what I do. This is the 4-knight scotch. You can find it if you go on the channel links. There is the link to the opening repertoire, and you can find the lines there. So d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4. Here my opponent played the main line, bishop b4, and here knight takes c6. Now after knight takes c6, the main line by far is to play b takes c6, and then bishop d3, d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, castle, castle, h3, whatever they want to do with the c-pawn or whatever else, and then queen f3, and rook e8, and bishop f4, and life goes on. But my opponent played d takes c6, which of course opens up the tension between the queens, and it offers a trade. Now this game here, I haven't looked at it with the engine or with the books, so let's see what the books say. And let's see what the engine says. So okay, funnily enough, queen takes d8 is best, but the problem is, in the game I played bishop d3, right, which tries to be coherent with what would happen if my opponent had played b takes c6. And of course my opponent didn't. He played instead d takes c6, so everything changes. But, you know, I didn't know better. The problem with queen takes d8, and now the engine is gonna show why I'm not good at chess. After king takes d8, I just couldn't find anything, right? On bishop to d2, I thought that he could just take, and take the pawn, and I saw that in the end this falls. But like, if he attacks me, and then I long castle, I guess there is bishop d4 in the end defending. For example, takes, takes, takes. Oh, long castle with check immediately. And after bishop d7, there is bishop takes g7. Okay. Attacking the rook, hanging this, but if he takes here, there is bishop takes h8, and after knight takes h1, bishop f6 check is good, king c8, bishop h4, and the knight can't escape, so I'll be up a piece eventually. And if instead my opponent attacks my bishop, then indeed we transpose to the line that basically I saw previously, bishop d4. Okay, so queen takes d8, check is very good. The best option for my opponent is king takes, bishop d2, and now bishop e6, saying I just want to develop my pieces, get out of here and be happy. Now bishop to e2, just developing, okay. And here again, if takes, takes, knight takes c4, bishop takes g7, attacking the rook goes here, long castle. Let's say, okay, king e7 now it's possible, but bishop d4 defends the pawn, and if rook takes, bishop f3. Alright, yeah, it makes sense, knight takes, bishop takes g2, no matter where you take, let's say on h1, bishop takes h1, up a piece. Yeah, so it makes sense. I'm literally looking at these things for the first time myself, and it turns out queen takes d8 is better. I will delete these variations. I will eventually study these, you know, in a future moment, but for the time being, let's just move on. So I played bishop d3. Let's keep the engine open and also the lines here. So bishop d3 makes some sense, I guess. And here bishop takes c3 with check, b takes c3, and as you can see, taking here, doubling the pawns, is tempting from the black perspective, but is almost never like really good. It just isn't. It just isn't. So, because, you know, white is just controlling some squares very nicely, is opening up some lines with his pieces, for his pieces, I should say. It's just alright. Here, black castle. Here I played what I think is a bad mistake, but we'll see what the engine thinks. Oh, apparently it's okay. I thought that here black simply had knight takes e4. Bishop takes e4, queen e7, what am I missing? Queen e2? Oh, no, rook e8, what? Oh, if I play f3, there is f5 and black is slightly better, okay. I just have to ignore it, basically. Oh, no, bishop d3, oh. Oh, I can just move defending the queen, oh. Oh, I'm insane. I'm insane. And if he moves here, oh, I can just, bro, what am I thinking? I don't know, bro, like, I don't know. I don't know, weird lines, but I played good move anyways, so, no, I actually played h3 because if I just castled, which of course is the best, then I was a little bit annoyed by bishop g4, so I'm like, let's just play h3, and then I'm like, after I played it, I'm like, wait a second, can he take? But yeah, it looked weird, but my opponent played h6, turns out that's fine, and here I just castled. I don't know why I keep hearing like a weird reverberating of my voice, which is quite of annoying. I don't know why is that. Maybe it's just, I don't know. But anyways, I castled, rook e8, attacks the pawn, queen f3 defends the pawn, and as you can see, I'm just playing like I would play if my opponent had taken with the b pawn, except he took with the c pawn. And apparently the engine is like, that's good. That may be even better, but there is also bishop takes. Usually when I play this opening, not only they take with the b pawn, they also don't take on c3. So quite some differences. Queen to e7, attacking the pawn. Rook e1, I defended the pawn. As you can see, we are playing very advanced chess. One attacks, the other one defends. And here queen to c5. So queen c5 is a weird move, right? Because it attacks a pawn, but first of all it attacks a pawn which is a double pawn, which by itself is not a big deal if he takes it. Also, this is not really a fork, because once I move the bishop anywhere really, both of the rooks are defended. So this is a tricky situation when they see that there is a fork, but in reality you have to move a piece, just one move, right? And the two pieces defend each other. So there's that. Also, the queen is no longer defending the knight, and as you can see, the engine is going a little bit crazy here, and it's calling for bishop takes h6, which I played. And it's quite an obvious move, right? I mean, this pawn is overworked, and bishop takes h6 is just the most common tactic of all. Also, something that will happen later in the game, once he takes here, if this pawn wasn't there, then bishop h7 will pick up the queen. So yeah, taking this pawn is not that great of an idea. Instead, if you win those pawns, that much better. And also, again, there are some tactics against black, so I just went for it. Bishop takes h6. Yeah, I actually consider moves like knight g4, unironically. But my opponent played queen takes c3, and I'm very happy to see that I played this combination the best way possible. I'm really very pleased by seeing that. Of course, I can just move the bishop back, like bishop g5, as you can see, and I'm fine. But I really wanted to try to maximize this, and I'm like, if I'm able to play bishop h7, I pick up the queen. I can try to do that with tempo, attacking the knight, and so I just played e5, right? And that was it. Now, my opponent played rook takes e5, which apparently is not really the best. Best is knight d5. Yeah, I saw knight d5, right? Knight d5 I think is best because it defends the queen, that's the point, and saves the knight. So the knight is under attack, I'm threatening bishop h7, winning the queen, So I'm threatening the knight and the queen, and knight d5 defends everything. So this makes sense. The problem is that, yeah, here I have moves like queen to g3, defending the pawn, which unironically is actually under attack, but also threatening mate. And you know, for example, I'm just looking at the main line of the computer, g6, and like black is just busted. All of my pieces are super active. The only problem, I don't have bishop g6 because queen takes, but like this is borderline lost. I mean, it's actually completely lost, so I shouldn't say borderline. So let's delete this. So I played e5, but my opponent played rook takes, which is bad, but it's actually not so obvious why this is bad. You may say, well, of course bishop h7. Yeah, but there is some deeper situation. So bishop h7 check, king takes h7, queen takes e3, attacking this rook, so no time to take the bishop. So rook takes c1 with check, rook takes c1, and here king takes h6. Now, if you count material, rook for rook, right? And then 3-5 pawns for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. But then we have a queen for a knight, a bishop, and a pawn. So strictly speaking, materially is like, you know, 9 for 7. So I'm winning, yes, but it's not so crushing if you just count material. But if you look at the position, is actually crashing because this king is exposed, these pieces are underdeveloped. And here I played what seems to me super logical. I just played queen d2 check with the idea of going to d8. He played king h7 and I played queen d8. And all of a sudden he doesn't have these pieces, right? And I'm about to come here, here, and just win the bishop. And at that point, queen against knight is like a walk in the park. So a5 by my opponent, trying to freeze pieces somehow, maybe generate some counterplay over there. I played rook e7, he played knight d5, but here there is rook takes f7, and the problem is I saw this idea of knight to d5 and trying to regroup on the queen side, which he did, he played knight d6. The problem is that, okay, now I'm never gonna win this bishop. However, all of his pieces are here on the queen side, like literally, all on the queen side. And I have like, what is this, 14 points of material just on the king side. So I played queen g5, threatening mate, and that's unstoppable. And so my opponent here resigned. This is actually mate in one, no matter what he plays. He can play anything, it's force mate. g6 doesn't work because it's illegal. So, well, that technically avoids mate, because it's an illegal move, so yeah, we call the arbiter, it's not mate. So, yeah, that was the first game. Not that much to say about that. Let's go on the second game. Now, the second game, guys, I mean, the last game was wild, but this is the wildest game I've ever played, ever. Like, this game is beyond your and mine understanding. It's insane. I don't know what to tell you. The reason why this game is insane is because it lasted 61 moves, and my opponent, I have to tell you the result, otherwise you don't understand. The result was a draw, okay? I drew this game, big spoiler. However, it was a very complex game, and my opponent took 5 minutes to play it all. Now, there is a 30-second increment, so you have to do 30 seconds each move, and then 5 minutes divided by 61 moves, which I don't know what it is, but is probably not even 40 seconds a move, on average. Which is wild, okay? Wild. So, to me, that's a win. Because, you know, what is a win? How can you define a win? Well, a way to define a win is the best result you can get. And so with this guy here, the best result I could get was to draw. And I drew, so I won this game. I don't care what the results say. So e4, you will understand what I'm saying once you see it. So e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6. So he's playing a Pierce. Knight f3, bishop g7, bishop e2. I'm playing a Pierce quiet line. Let me click this button or I'll disappear into the obscurity. And here castle, castle, bishop g4. So this apparently is called the Parma variation. Parma defense, yeah, I mean, is a black move, so is a defense. I knew that it existed, however, I didn't study it because I'm trying to study everything, and you can't study everything in a very short amount of time. So, yeah, it's what it is. So bishop g4, I played bishop e3, knight c6, queen d2. Yeah, after bishop g4, I'm basically out of my like memorization. I know the ideas now, just vaguely. Is about this central square. That's basically what everyone knows. But I don't know the specific moves. Like queen d2 is probably not even so precise, but it doesn't matter. I checked this game with the engine and with the book. With the engine mostly. I mean, the opening is fine for white, all these lines are fine for white in the beginning, but then it gets complicated. So bishop takes f3, you may be surprised by this move, but you shouldn't. Bishop takes f3 aims to basically keep black with the two knights. Usually players want to be left with the two bishops, but my opponent's idea is to play e5. Now, if I take, meaning I keep the position semi-open, he can then take either with the pawn or with the knight, and he will find a way to get rid of one of the bishops. And if I close the position, which is the idea that I knew, well, then the position is closed, and knight works best in a closed position. So by taking here, my opponent is saying if you close the position, I have the two knights, which in a closed position is advantageous. It may be the only exception to as an argument in favor of the knight pair compared to the bishop pair. And if you don't close the position, well, then I'm able to trade at least one bishop more, and then you don't have the bishop pair. So that was the idea that I also knew. And here, okay, my opponent wants to move this knight and play f5. So I played g4. It's a little bit crazy. F5, f4 is the idea, so the computer is like saying, just play g3, man. You're kind of playing against this idea, but without like blasting g4. I played g4, but turns out like the engine is not hating it, so okay, it took me some time to play this, of course. I'm like, I don't know. But okay, g4, knight d7, my opponent keeps going. And my idea was to just move the king, bishop h6, and if he opens things up, I'm like, you know, I am the one attacking here. I decided to start with bishop h6, maybe not so precise. As you can see, the engine really didn't like that. But okay, it kept going with f5. And you have to keep in mind that, like, you guys don't get the feeling, okay? But when you're playing a game and such complex position arises, and not that this is a crazy complex position, but like you see g4 on the board, right? And then like my opponent kept playing 30 seconds a move. Like it's insane. I was scared. So f5, like I was literally scared. I'm like, who is this guy? So bishop takes g7, king takes g7, g takes f5, g takes f5, and here if I just move my king, then there is f4, and if my queen is cut off from the action, then there is not much I can do. I consider queen g5, but as you can see from the engine down there, knight g6 not only stops the check, because that's not the end of the world. I can play e takes f5, no, because the queen also sees your queen, and so king h1 doesn't work, taking doesn't work. Of course, the engine keeps suggesting king h1, but I just took. Knight takes f5, king h1, and here knight d4. Again, in this position, there is queen h4 that is appealing to the eye. There is knight h4, knight d4. My opponent just kept playing like boom, 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 instant chess. And yeah, I was really afraid. Also, yeah, king h8, as the computer is suggesting, is not like, is a sensible move. I'm about to check you. But no, he played knight d4 instantly, doesn't matter, doesn't care. Rook g1 check, king h8, and here if I play queen a6, queen h6, the problem is queen f6, right? Queen h6 threatens mate, so he cannot just take the bishop, but queen f6 not only defends the mate, not only tries to trade the queens, but it also attacks the bishop, right? And so here I cannot really go h6. As you can see, even the engine, you know, approves what I've been saying. So I tried bishop to g4. Now, I could also play bishop e4, which looks interesting, threatening queen h6, but again, queen f6 is annoying. So after bishop g4, if he plays queen f6, then he loses the knight. However, he didn't play queen f6, he played the much better queen h4, which I saw, but again, what's surprising me of this game is that my opponent just keep playing 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Not difficult moves, right, relatively, but, you know, played very fast, so that was impressive. And here, yeah, here I made a mistake. I mean, I've already made some mistakes, it's -1, but I thought f3 takes, because if I take here, I should point out, knight f3 threatens mate and the queen, and there is no way for me to defend both. So here I was thinking, okay, I play f3, he can take the pawn, but then I play queen g2, and all of a sudden the knight and the knight are under attack. The problem is that this doesn't work, because after f3 I failed to realize that after knight takes f3 and queen g2, he can just win a rook. And it's not as simple. I played f3 anyways, he played knight takes f3, and then... yeah, and then bishop takes f3, that's what I played in the game. I'm getting a little bit confused for some reasons. If queen g2, that's the line that I thought in the beginning, but then I realized there is knight takes g1, and the problem is if I take, there is rook g8. And here I can try to play queen f1, because the idea is the knight can't escape, right? And then I have 2 pieces for the rook. The problem is that this doesn't work. Like, this just totally wins for black, so much so the engine actually announces a mate. That's how bad it is. But I mean, a position like that, how do you assess is losing for white? I mean, you don't have to see the mate. Like, it's obvious that this is losing. Like, this is just crashing. So bishop takes f3, rook takes f3, and here rook g2. So I'm basically accepting that I'm in a worse position. I didn't know it was that bad. I thought, you know, I'm down a pawn and my opponent has initiative, but, you know, if I'm able to simplify a little bit, then I may activate my king a little bit better than my opponent. It's clear that bringing my king here is easier than my opponent, but because I just have to do this. But you know, the engine is like, no, you're basically lost. So, okay, rook a to f8, rook a to g1, rook f2. Here I have a little bit of a tactic. I can take with the rook, but I just took with the queen. If he takes, there is mate. Of course, he takes with the queen. Rook takes f2, rook takes f2. Okay, so in this moment, I know I'm lost. I'm down a pawn, and he has a protected passed pawn. This pawn is under attack. This pawn is, you know, not easy to defend everything. So in my mind, I had 2 ideas. I could play rook g2, trying to simplify in a worst position, or, and by the way, after rook g2, my opponent is not obliged to take. He can check me, play some fanciness, he can do whatever he wants. Or I can try to play what I played in the game, knight e4. The idea behind knight e4 is that I'm attacking the rook, and I want to go knight g5, after which I'm going to threaten mate, but he will see it, so he may play something like h6, but then I'm gonna check him, he's gonna move up, I'm gonna go here attacking this pawn, he's gonna take to defend, but then I'm gonna go to e6, threatening check because the king is on h7 and winning the knight, and even if he defends the knight, I have check winning the pawn, and if he takes again, I take again, and then this pawn is weak, and I may have some counterplay, and listen, if I'm able to take all of these pawns, like, you can be up a pawn all you want, but my pieces are active, your king is exposed, so I'm like, that looks good. And again, you know, after knight to e4, my opponent has to consider all of these things, but no, he played rook takes e2 in just 30 seconds, like he always did. Unbelievable. Actually, we start with 1 minute and 30, with 1 hour and 30 minutes, and every move you play, you have a 30-second increment. And my opponent had 1 hour and 31 minutes. Meaning that on average, it didn't even took 30 seconds. It took like slightly less, 28, 29, whatever. Maybe even less, because it's just 25 moves. Anyways, math is not exactly like my strength. Knight g5, threatening mate, but is not to threaten mate. I know these guys will see, this guy sees everything. And even here, right, he played h6 like blitzing it out. Bro, you can think about rook f2, for example. You are defending the mate, and if I just do nothing, you know, you're gonna play h6, then I'll have to come back or go here, and then you can just chop off all the pawns, right? And rook takes b2, sorry, h6. h6 is totally fine, okay? h6 is totally fine. But, you know, you consider at least rook f2. You spend like a couple of minutes, if anything. A couple of minutes is not a lot on such crazy position, but yeah, my opponent was just blitzing out moves. So h6, knight f7 check, and here I'm just totally lost. King h7, knight d8. I'm trying to attack the pawn. I'm trying to reposition my knight in the most active square possible. I'm reaching the outpost. That's funny. So rook takes b2, defends the pawn, fine, and also like rook takes b2 just blitzed out. That's not even that good. The engine rightfully so is just saying just win with this pawn. But yeah, rook takes b2, just winning pawns after pawns. Knight e6, attacking the pawn, threatening check, winning the knight. And here he played king h8, I played rook h6, sorry, rook g6, trying to check and check and check. And here he played the wildest move ever, which is a blunder apparently, e4. According to the engine, if he played knight c5, just defending the knight, it would have been fine and winning. But, you know, the reason why this game I consider it the wildest game I've ever played is because my opponent took 30 seconds, but not even on average, I think, on like the game so far, and he's crashing me. And you know, usually people who take like 30 seconds per move are like beginners, but the problem is that beginners, they lose when they take 30 seconds per move. My opponent was totally crushing me, and so you may say, well, it was just a much stronger player, which is an argument that I would agree with if it wasn't for the fact that my opponent kept taking 30 seconds per move and he lost the advantage away completely. So yeah, he played amazing and terribly at the same time. Like, I don't understand. The weird game, weird game. So e4 is a genius move, except it's wrong. But it's a genius move because, let's say it's white to move, right? Rook takes, the knight is controlling some important squares, so don't miss that. So rook takes, only move, rook check again. Now if he goes back, okay, that's a repetition. If he goes back here, then I win the knight. So check, here, check. Can't go here, there is the knight, so he goes here. Then I have a check here. If he moves up, I win the knight. So check, here, check, here, check. If he goes back, which is the only other move, then I can check and force the repetition, because if he interposes with the knight, I just take. Or I can even check here, and if he goes here, I have check again, so he goes here, and then I check again, and if he goes here, he has to lose the knight, and if he goes back, is a repetition. So after he plays e4, I have a guaranteed, which is either a repetition or winning his knight. Now you may be thinking, oh, your opponent missed that. He's playing 30 seconds move. And that's the thing. No, my opponent didn't miss anything. He didn't miss anything. He saw all of that. But his idea was that once I find myself with the rook here and the king here, his king and my rook, he will just promote this pawn and there is no way for me to stop it. Which is not that wildest of an idea. Again, if you are 1500 on CIS or whatever and you are used to people blundering pieces every game, then to you this is a wild idea. But, you know, he's obviously a very strong guy playing over the board chess, like, is not really that wild of an idea. But to actually play it with 30 seconds, this is insane. Who is this guy? I was genuinely terrified. Now, at the time, I didn't know this was a blunder and basically throw away his advantage. I thought my opponent was genius finding all the best moves in 30 seconds. I was genuinely terrified. So anyways, I played the best thing that I could see. Rook takes h6, king g8, rook g6. If he went back, I would have been happy. He played king f7, and here I was like, my heart was like literally racing. I was shaking when I was making the moves, because in my mind this game was lost, because not because of the position. itself, but because my opponent was a genius. So rook g7 check, here he played king f6, and all these moves that he is playing in such positions that are crazy instantly. Not like literally instantly, but like 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, which in a classical game is instantly. So rook takes d7. I mean, what else can I do? Now, some variations, not really. If he goes back, just knight takes c7. If he goes back, check, and it's a repetition. And if he goes here, check again. And if he goes back, is a repetition. And if he goes here, this is actually bad, because now he has to give away the knight, but with check, and now I'm in time to stop the pawn, and his king is even more exposed, and he's down a piece all of a sudden, and this pawn will run. So this is actually winning for white, which is insane, but that's what happens. So no, and again, this variation I just showed you, you may say, oh, that variation is actually a little bit complicated. Let me take like some minutes to figure it out. No, everything instantly. Maybe he saw it previously. Everything instantly. What's going on? Who is this guy? So rook takes d7. Unbelievable. He played e3, and I'm like, okay, here I'm lost. You may say, oh, but you are up a piece. I never even took in consideration for a second that I could be winning. Not even that I could be drawing. Of course I looked for it, because I tried to look for it, but everything apparently was losing. So if I play rook takes, I play knight d4, which is the best move. So good for me. But let's say that I play, I don't know, king g1. It's the first idea that you have trying to get to this pawn. At first I thought that my opponent was such a genius that maybe rook takes h2 works, and if I take, I'm not in time to stop the pawn, or some craziness like that. But then I realize after rook takes, I can just move towards the pawn, and in the end I'm up a piece, so I'm fine, and I will be able to win those pawns, so I'm fine. But here there is check, and after king to g2 only move, there is e2, and here there is no way to stop the promotion. This is just terrible, terrible. Minus 96, how kind of the computer not showing the force made. So the other option is rook takes c7, and here there are a billion ways that black can do it, but the way I saw was e2, only move to stop the promotion rook c1, and here the wild rook d2. Wild. And if I play king to g1, there is check, I have to take the rook or I lose mine, and then promotion. If I play g2, king g2, there is promotion with check, and the wildest of all, if I play rook e1, there is rook d1. This rook is under attack, it's pinned to the king. If I take the rook, he takes with promotion, and I'm not in time to defend the rook. Again, all of this is seeable. I saw it, but like, when did he saw it? And it took 30 seconds every single move. Like, this is unbelievable. What is going on? And so because of all of these reasons, I'm like, okay, everything loses. So for me, it was actually relatively easy to play, because when you see like 3 moves and 2 lose, and the other one you don't really see what's happening, you play the one that you don't see what's happening. Now, after knight to f4, I didn't like the fact that he can just approach my knight, and I don't have really a clear check. Instead, after knight d4, if he approaches my knight, he cannot go here. So, you know, knight d4 is easier to calculate, because the king doesn't have two squares to enter, he just have one. Then I have another check, and then I go to g1, and I realize that if I do that, and then I give a check, I'm controlling e2, I may be able to take the pawn while keeping the piece, so I play knight d4. Turns out it's the best move, so yeah, I'm very proud of that move. Here, you know, again, I didn't know that my opponent threw away his advantage. I thought that I was completely lost. And so did my opponent. You understand from like body language, the way they play, like you understand that they think they're winning, and I thought they were winning. My teammates, because this was a team event, they also thought I was completely losing. Everyone in the world thought I was losing. Stockfish now says, no, it's basically draw. Yeah, you have to be careful, but it's just a draw. Yeah, I didn't know that. So e2 forces me to give away the piece. But the problem is that then I get a lot of counterplay on these pawns, which is basically what I was counting when I played in the beginning of the world knight e4. That was I was counting on. I realized that if my knight gets here and my rook gets here, even if I don't take their knight, which eventually I did because my opponent allowed me, otherwise they would have been winning, I would have a lot of counterplay here. That was my idea. And well, that happened. So I played knight d4, but my opponent plays king e5, okay? Knight f3 check. Again, if he ever takes this pawn, first of all, it opens this up, but I'm just taking his pawn too. That's the thing. But he plays king e4, attacking my knight. I play knight g1, and again, if he pushes, you know, I have some ideas of maybe checking here and taking here, I don't know. But even if I have to give away the knight, again, I'm starting to take a lot of pawns. So he played rook takes a2, and here I just play rook takes e7. Every time that he doesn't threaten to promote, he plays anything else, even winning a pawn, I have the time to take another pawn. That's the thing. Here he played b5, and I didn't know what to do. I tried rook e7 check, because that, I mean, right? Like, what do I do? And here in my mind, if he manages to keep these elements, like the first element is the two connected passed pawn, and the second element is the advanced passed pawn. This is just one passed pawn, but it's the most further away. So in my mind, if he was able to keep these two elements on the board, he would be winning. And so I thought king d3 was best, and the engine actually confirms, not that he's winning, but that king d3 is best. But he captured, which I was very happy to see, because, you know, I very happily trade this pawn for this pawn. Are you kidding me? Like, this is 2 squares away from promotion, and now, yes, he has another passed pawn, but this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares away from promotion. And again, my opponent keeps playing instantly. We are on move 40, and I can tell you how much time did he have, because I usually don't keep track of my opponent time, but here I started to do at some point, because I'm like, this is insane. So on move 40, he had 1 hour and 25 minutes. Like, he just used 5 minutes for the whole game. This is insane. This is insane. Unbelievable. 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 So anyways, so it's weird, because you may say, well, your opponent was a genius, right? He had a winning position, just playing 30 seconds each move. Yeah, but then why do you keep doing that, and you are drawing the game, you're missing everything? Like, it doesn't make sense. On one side you may say, well, he's a moron because he's just throwing away advantages by playing fast, but he was crushing me by doing the same, and so you may say, well, then he's a genius. But no, because he's strong. So he was playing like a genius and a moron at the same time. Very confusing. So anyways, he keeps pushing, but here I have also a pawn on my own, and I played h4. He played rook a3, which looks like a genius move, because it's like, I'm attacking your rook, and if you take, there is no way for your knight to stop me, but if you don't take, I will check you and win the pawn, except my knight is controlling h3, so no, that's not happening. And when I play h4, I didn't saw rook a3 specifically, actually, but I saw the idea that h3 and h2 are controlled by me. So that I saw. So I play rook e2. My opponent played rook g3. I just played h5 because I'm like, push him, baby. And here, if he does that, I have this, and after this, I'm able to promote, and he's able to promote. But remember, I'm up a piece, so that will be a draw, because he has 2 pawns and a queen, but I have a queen, a knight, and it's my turn. So already this wins a pawn. Like, this is huge. So this would have drawn the game. And I'm calculating all of that with how much time do I have here. I mean, it's not difficult to calculate, but still there is a lot of pressure psychologically, right? Here I have 9 minutes. So actually, usually I reach those positions with like 30 seconds on the clock, but no, this time I actually had 9 minutes, which is not a lot, but it's not even nothing. So he played rook g8, and here I played rook a2. My idea is not really to like win the pawn for the sake of winning the pawn, even though, of course, if I manage to do that's huge. But I just want to take this pawn, go behind this other pawn, and just stop it. You know, rooks behind pawns are the best. Not always, but as a principle. And here too, apparently. Again, you see the draw, and so you're chilling. I didn't know this was a draw, bro. And I was traumatized by the way my opponent was playing, and so in my mind, he was a genius that calculated everything until the end, and I'm just losing somehow. I didn't saw how I'm losing, and if I was playing against anyone that took his time to reach this position, I would be like, it's probably a draw, right? Right now that I'm looking at it objectively, you know, anything can happen, but against this guy I was just terrified. And here he played a mistake. Of course, is a mistake humanly speaking. The position is a draw. Did I click the button? I don't know. Now I did. The position is a draw, so anything he plays, unless he loses, then it's a draw. You know, so I can't really talk about mistakes. But the problem is, humanly speaking, the move he played, Rook H8, is a mistake. Even though, again, the evaluation doesn't change, so you cannot really call it a mistake, but I still do. Why do I call it a mistake? Because here I want to do three things. I want to win his pawn, I want to preserve my pawn, and I want to play king g2, because I need to activate my king. We are in an endgame, that's what you do. Now, by playing rook h8, he helps me accomplish two things, which is I play king g2, and I manage to keep this pawn. You may say, why, how? Because if he captures the pawn, then I have rook a5 check, winning the rook. And then a rook and a knight against three pawns is just too much. So notice is how my opponent here played rook a3, which is not perhaps the most accurate move ever. And he kind of misses a tactic on the rank, not on the file, on the rank. And then he plays rook h8, and again he misses a tactic on the rank. So that was weird. So he plays b3, I take, and my idea is to go here, and now very kindly table base is saying, oh yeah, that's it. What is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces on the board, and so it's table base. We know the game until the end. It's a draw. This is a known position. I didn't know that, and what's funny is that I put this game already when after the game I put it in my chess.com analysis board on the phone, and there is an engine which is, I think, is actually Stockfish 16 or whatever, but it's not about the engine, it's about the power of the device, and so that engine there is very weak, and that engine thinks that this is completely winning for black. He took some time to realize that it's actually a draw. During the game I wasn't really sure. There is a moment where I know it's a draw, but here I wasn't super sure, because to me it was about how much time do I take to bring this knight into the game. So he played king c4, and here again the engine on chess.com on the phone, you know, chess.com free, not premium, is saying winning for black. I play knight e2, rook takes h5, and here rook a4 check. Here I'm very lucky, because if he cannot move here because there is the knight, and if he goes here there is this fork, and again I win the rook, and if I win the rook that's good. So he went to b5, but now I have rook a8, and if he pushes the pawn I have check, and I picks it up. So he played king b4 with the idea that after check there is this, and the pawn is just going. And here again the engine is like, not this engine seizes immediately, is in table base, but the weak engine on the phone is like, this is winning for black. So here I played king f3, he plays b2, and I played rook b8, and it looks like it's over, right? But it's not. Rook b5, rook takes b5, king takes b5, and here I managed to see knight c3 check is the only move that draws. Because if I don't do it, then he will move the king and I don't have the geometry anymore. But knight c3, which I saw from the distance, just saves me. It just does. If his king was here, I would have been losing. But now there is king c4, knight b1, and here, ladies and gentlemen, I've spent I think 2.5 hours watching Grandmaster Naroditsky's videos on endgames, specifically of king and pawn versus knight. So I know what I'm talking about, and I knew this was a draw. Now still, I was so traumatized by the way my opponent was playing, I literally had PTSD, even though it was still going on. It's like you have PTSD on the last day of the Vietnam War. You're still there, but yeah. And bro, I don't know, in my mind somehow you could find some magic trick. You know, when you're playing, you start to hallucinate. But no, it's a draw. I knew it logically, but emotionally I was like super scared. I was shaking while moving. I couldn't believe it. So he played king d3, and again it looks terrible, but I just know that it's not winnable. So king f2, and here I'm just trying to go here, and after that I can just go back and forward forever. And yeah, he played d5. You may see how is this a draw? Well, king e1. Now again, I'm threatening king d1. If I'm able to get king d1, there's nothing he can do. Even if he can teleport here, I just have this. If he promotes, take, 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 I sacrifice the piece, and then I just win his pawn. So he played king c2, and you may say, how is this a draw? Well, check. There's nothing to be done. If he goes here or here, I have check again, and if he goes back, I check him again. And if he does that, that, and that, I have check here this time, right? Not to take this pawn, don't make this mistake, but just to go back and forth. So he played king c1, and again, you're like, oh, he's about to promote, and then he keeps a pawn. How is this a draw? Just king e2. There's nothing he can do, nothing. And so, yeah, he played d4. I played king d3. He cannot move this pawn. I'm just about to win it, so he promoted. I took, he took, I took, and that was it. And my opponent took like, wait a second, I have the timestamps. I don't like the last timestamps that I have is on. Sorry guys, let me give a second. Yeah, so king d3, d5. So d5 is the last timestamp I have, 1 hour and 25 minutes. It's funny because on my move there is 1 column 20, and on my opponent there is 1 column 25. So it's like I have 1 minute and 20 seconds, and my opponent has 1 minute and 25 seconds, except I have 1 minute and 20 seconds, and my opponent has 1 hour and 25 minutes. So now you understand why I said in the beginning of this game that I won this game. You know, it's not like that I won it on paper, but it's a moral win. This was a moral win, bro. And we were, I think, the first to finish. I drew, and the fact that my teammates were seeing this game, and they were seeing that I was getting crushed, when we shook hands and they saw that we drew, I'm sure they felt relief. Because it's a lot about perspective, right? If you're losing and then you draw, that's great, you feel amazing. And the opposite, if you're winning and then you draw, you feel horrible. So then eventually we drew that match. We won the first match as a team, because remember, this is a team event. We won the first match and I won the game. I drew the second game and we drew as a team the match. So this draw was very important, because otherwise all the results are important, of course, but if I lost, then we would have lost. So I'm really so happy that we managed to do that. Now it's funny because our chess club had 2 teams in the same division, and the teams can play against each other even if we are on the same chess club. And that's what happened on round 3. So here I'm playing against a friend of mine, which is just hilarious. So okay, d4, d5, bishop to f4, easy turn, bishop f4, knight to f6, he's playing the London system, e3, e6. Now, against the London system, I think that here you can play c5 and being a little bit more aggressive, but I never really studied it. I have a chapter in my repertoire on it, but I just can't bother studying it, even though I should, because in every tournament I play, they play the London system in at least 1 game. So I played 2 tournaments this month and 2 games against the London system. So I should probably study something very specific, because it will yield some nice dividends. So he played bishop d3, I played c5. As you can see, I play c5, like I know the idea, which is, I mean, it's quite obvious. But yeah, maybe it's not the most efficient, aggressive setup. The setup that causes the most trouble, let's say. So d takes c5, bishop takes c5, knight f3, knight c6. And here knight to e5. So this is very similar to what my opponent in the other tournament did, which is just jumping with the knight in the center very quickly. They just do that. I think that a move like knight d2 or even like just c3 and then knight d2 is a little bit better, because once the knight jumps on e5, if you take it and they are not able to recapture with the knight, like that's a little bit, you know. So, you know, knight e5 and just be ready for knight f3 behind it, right? But okay, knight e5 is not the end of the world. I just castled. c3, bishop back to d6. This is very typical. The idea is basically that you are fighting for the e5 square. Knight takes c6, b takes c6, queen a4. So that's quite annoying, putting some pressure on this pawn. I have to kind of be careful, because if queen takes c6, then the rook is also under attack. So it's not such a trivial move. I played e5, and here bishop g5. Now here, of course, you have to calculate what happens if queen takes c6. I haven't checked this with the engine, so I may be totally wrong. But I think that here I calculate e takes f4, and here I just won a piece. I'm about to just move the rook or the bishop and be totally fine. So queen takes a8, but now I think that I saw queen b6. And here I'm threatening bishop b7, which literally traps the rook, and queen takes b2. I may be totally wrong, so let's see what the opponent, not the opponent, but the engine is thinking. My opponent agreed with me, so we know what the opponent was thinking, but let's see the engine. So apparently the engine agrees, so me and my opponent saw it correctly. E takes f4, yeah, queen takes a8, but now queen b6. Yeah, queen b6 is just, yeah. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that was okay, bishop g5, and here bishop d7. Here is a little bit different. My opponent is threatening perhaps queen h4. He ended up not playing it. But queen h4 was concerning, so I'm like, what about e4, shutting down the bishop? The problem is that I think that now queen takes c6 works. So for example, e4, queen takes c6, e takes d3. Actually, after e4, first bishop takes, attacking the queen. Now, probably best is queen takes f6 and just call it a day or something. But if you play, let's say, g takes f6, trying to play queen b6, then queen takes, okay? Then pawn takes. Here you are up a piece, queen takes, and here queen b6 I think doesn't work. Maybe there is something else, maybe I'm missing everything. The engine will annihilate all of my dreams. But the point is that now queen takes d5, that in this variation there is not, because the knight is guarding the pawn. In this variation there is, because the knight is gone. And after I take here, he can take here, and I can take here, and he can just castle. And I mean, this is just wild. This pawn is really not dangerous at all. And I don't know what's going on here. So let's see how bad this variation is. So e4. So yeah. Okay, so the engine is just saying bishop e2, call it a day. But what happened is bishop takes f6. Yeah, as you can see, queen takes f6. The instinct is correct. If I play g takes f6, what happens if queen takes c6? Oh, e takes d3 is actually okay. What? What? Oh, okay, there is mate here. Oh, that's beautiful. I missed this completely. I even thought about some mating construction here, but not here. Yeah, crazy. There's just mate in one. Yeah, so here he has to castle first. But now I guess bishop to e5 and everything is collapsing. The knight can't move out, and the rook is still under attack, so knight d2, but now queen takes d2. Saves the rook, but loses the knight, and then I'm up a piece. Okay, amazing. So I could have just played e4, and actually this would have been best, probably, right? Yeah, so bishop d7 was totally unnecessary. It's not bad, my position is still better, but yeah, e4 would have been very interesting, okay. So bishop d7, knight d2, logical, developing. Now I get to play e4. Now if he played queen to h4, my idea was to, I'm not even sure what my idea would have been. Here he's threatening mate. I mean, he's threatening to take and mate. So here I have to think about what to do, probably h6, and then bishop takes f6. Yeah, and here, see, my idea was to play g takes f6 and then play the game, but no, here I would have to realize that that's horrible, so I have to take with the queen. And then we enter a position like that, which is not bad at all for black, but is all of a sudden, you know, it's a little bit difficult. Of course, you know, if he short castle, the engine says it's not bad, but humanly speaking, all of a sudden you have some play, king h8, rook g8, is objectively okay, but just knight d2, and then long castle, just to make sure you're not under the fire. And yeah, black is slightly better no matter what, but you know, that may have been a little bit more resilient. But okay, knight d2, e4, bishop e2, okay, bishop e2, h6, and the bishop takes f6, okay, queen takes f6, bishop h4 again maybe would have been a little bit more resilient. I talked with my opponent after the game about this idea. He told me that he was a little bit, you know, concerned that I chased the bishop away, but since he wanted to long castle, this is actually fine because you are kind of inviting black to weaken your pawns. And it's funny because he then played around later this idea, and his opponent chased him around, and then this provoked his opponent to weaken the pawns, and he actually got a nice attack. So, you know, that's very nice. But anyways, in the game with me, he played bishop takes f6, I played queen takes f6, and here he played f3. Yeah, f3, yeah, the engine immediately is like, nah, not good. And after f3, I kind of played it maybe a little bit too unambitiously, because these two pawns are weak, and so I just played queen g5. The engine is like, no, you can go for the kill, queen h4 check. Yeah. The point is that after g3 there is bishop takes g3, which I saw, but I wasn't so convinced after king f1. But apparently the engine is like, are you dumb? The king is in the middle of the board, what are you talking about? Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, bishop c5. The problem with bishop c5 is that now he gets to play g3. But apparently, yeah, the engine just doesn't care. I just, like, what? Oh, the pawn is under attack, so you cannot just play this. Okay, so this makes sense. Yeah. And if he defends, just open up, and then there is this. Yeah. So no, this was just totally losing. I just lost myself in a glass of water. I don't know if there is this saying in English, but in Italy we say, you lose yourself in a glass of water. Like, the position is actually simpler that you made it in your mind. So queen g5. Yeah, here f takes e4, and you just go into crazy combinations. But long castle, this just allows me to take. And the problem is that this comes with tempo. So all of a sudden, despite I may not have played the most aggressive way, it's still completely winning for black. So in the end of the day, it's not a big deal. But, you know, it's nice to see what exactly the right move was. Anyways, here I'm attacking the bishop. I just want a pawn. He castled the king, so there may be some attack, but the problem is I want an important central pawn, and we know that when there are opposite side castling, a good idea is to find counterplay in the center, and I'm finding very good counterplay in the center, and I'm winning a tempo on the bishop. So queen a6, the best move actually, interesting. I thought best was just to defend with the rook, probably doesn't matter that much. And here, yeah, here I played the best move of the game, which is rook f to b8. That's actually ironic. I played rook f to b8 because I'm like, oh, if rook b8 he wins the pawn, so I play rook f to b8, totally failing to realize that this pawn is defended. Amazing. So rook f to b8, and here I'm threatening rook b6, and then I disconnect the queen from the bishop. He played f takes c4, which is a great move. Here I cannot play rook b6, surprisingly enough. I mean, I can, but it's bad. Here I played the d takes c4. The problem is after rook b6, by taking here, he gave himself this very nice square. So I took back the pawn, not to take the pawn, but to control d3. And here rook h to e1. Threatening perhaps on this score is I played queen g5, pressuring the pawn, looking at the queen side, you never know, but most importantly, keeping the pin on the knight. Very important that I keep the pin on the knight. He played g3, defending the pawn. I played rook b6, attacking the queen. Queen c4, pressuring the pawn, pressuring f7. But now after rook a to b8, I mean, it's clear that white is about to collapse. He played rook f1, trying to be as resilient as possible, but here I have this very nice move, bishop e6, and this just wins the tempo on the queen. Queen takes e4 is not just about taking a pawn, really. It's also to play bishop d3 and go after the kill. But here just rook takes b2, it just works. Props to my opponent, he played as resiliently as he could with bishop d3, really trying to go for the counterplay. It's a very good way of thinking. When you're under attack and you realize he's lost, you will see I will do the same in the last game. When I was under attack, I was lost, but I tried my best. And then, well, crazy things happen, but you will see it in a second. Same thing is doing my opponent, bishop d3, you know. I know I'm lost here. I can try to be super fancy, maybe trying some crazy move here, but let me just try to go for a real counterplay. So that's most of the times the right way to approach it. The problem is here I have bishop a3, which sets up rook takes a2, checkmate, unstoppable, and queen h7. All you have to do if you're playing black here is to calculate. Is really a big deal? The answer is no. So I just play bishop a3, which turns out is the best move. So queen h7 check, king f8, queen h8. It looks scary, but there's nothing. My king is perfectly safe here on the dark squares. The rook here is not a check. And yeah, of course, the engine is like rook takes f7 is the best. Everyone saw that. I saw that. Spectators saw this. My opponent saw this. But humanly speaking, it's just ridiculous. So queen takes b8, but now rook takes b8 with check. Only move king c2, and this is literally a forced mate. It's not that I saw the first mate, but I'm like after rook b2 and king c1, rook takes d2 check wins a piece, because of course the king is under check and this is defended, so you have to move the king, you cannot capture back the rook, and I'm like, that's good enough. And after king b1, here I actually started to think a little bit, and I'm like, is there a mate here? Because it feels like there's something, and then I found bishop takes a2 check, king to a1, bishop to b2, king takes, and here there's just queen a5, king b3. You can win by playing check and check, right? But I decided to do it the other way because it looked prettier with the pawn here. And that was it. I won. And also my team won. It's a little bit sad because we won against, you know, the other team of our chess club, but at least we won 4-0. So that was an important win for the main team. In the end of the day, it doesn't matter which team wins the whole tournament, because then the whole chess club, if we win the tournament, gets promoted to the higher series. So it was good. What matters in those circumstances is that one of the two teams of the same chess club wins 4-0. That's important. And you may say, oh, did you combine it? Actually, we didn't combine it. It's just we played strong. So yeah, that was the game. Let me delete the variations. The only problem in these situations is like, because you may say, oh, that's amazing, you won 4-0, right? It gives your team, we were team number 1, they were team number 2. This gives you higher chances of winning the whole tournament. That's true. The problem is, if you have 2 teams in the same tournament that never meets, right, then 2 teams has the probabilities of winning the tournament. And what matters is that one of the 2 teams of our chess club wins. That's what matters. If instead we win 4-0 against the other team of our chess club, that's good for us, but that's bad for them, which means the two teams doesn't have the same probabilities of winning the tournament. This other team, their team, all of a sudden has close to 0 probabilities. So that's the only issue. But okay, let's just take the positive. Our team now has more chances, and here we are doing great. Here we are the first or second team in the leaderboard playing against the first or second team in the leaderboard. I think they were the first and we were the second. My opponent plays e4, I'm playing on board number 2, so you know, stakes are high. I know this guy, I already played against him. I don't think he's in here, because maybe he is. No, I don't think so. But yeah, strong player, young, you know, studying chess every day, just very strong. So yeah, lower rated than me, but you know, it doesn't really matter, especially these days. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, and look at what happens, guys. The accelerated dragon. We had it on the board many times. I recently studied a freaking course on it, and so I was happy to see it on the board. So bishop g7, bishop to e3, knight f6, bishop c4, castle, and bishop to b3. So believe it or not, this is actually the main line, what I've been studying. So I was so happy to see it on the board. And then here I played rook e8. That's the move of my studies. He castled, and here I actually didn't remember what to do, and I have no idea. I may check it in my notes, but let's actually do it. Because I didn't transcribe everything, you know. So let's go. 9 short castle. Yeah, here there is d6. I'm happy to see that this is actually. Oh, I actually played the line that I have here. So d6, and then there is h3, and then there is knight a5. Bro, I played it right. Queen d2, trying to still play bishop h6, a6. Bro, I'm playing exactly what I've been studying. This is insane. Oh, and rook f2 e1. Okay, but then the idea is to play b5. Bro, I'm happy. I basically played what I've studied. Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so there is a funny moment here. And you may say, what's the funny moment? Everything makes sense. I'm not really going to a5 to win the bishop. I'm going to a5 to, you know, play rook c8 and then knight c4. And, you know, if he pushes this pawn, then I take, because, you know, this pawn structure is not great. If he takes with the knight, it's going backward. If he takes with the pawn, then he's a little bit weakened. But, yeah, it looks like it's amazing. My opponent played bishop takes g7, and after king takes g7, the game just moves on. But I put this into the engine, actually, yesterday. And it turns out here there is a tactic for white. So feel free to stop the video and find the best move for white. Actually, don't stop the video. I'll just drink. I'll give you some seconds. It just wins for white. There is a winning tactic for white here, believe it or not. Is it here? I hope it's here. Maybe I'm missing the point where is it, but I think it's here. Winning tactic for white, guys. So you're probably thinking about, I don't know, knight here or knight here, unleashing the queen on the knight, but the knight is defended. Don't get it twisted. No, here is just, you have to use the technique, CCA techniques, checks, captures, and attacks. Here there is bishop takes f7 check. Now let me check if I'm correct. Yeah, bishop takes f7. Maybe it's not like really winning for white, but borderline. Bishop takes f7 check. If I don't take, I mean, I just lose the rook. And if I take, there is bishop takes g7, and I can't take the bishop back. Because if I do, fork. Unbelievable. It's not as simple. There is like e5, but then bishop takes f6. I have to take. Yeah, there is also knight d5, but let's say just the more human knight f3. And here I just lost a pawn. And this is weak, this is weak, this is +2. So that's why, you know, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but wins are very dangerous. Yeah, I won this game, but as you can see, you may say, oh, you won the game, so you played much better than your opponent. Not really. I totally missed this bad idea. This is really bad. Bishop takes f7. Unreal. Rook f2 e1. b5 is correct. Bishop h6. And here, just not what I played. Not what I played. I just played the natural move. But it's just a blunder. And my opponent neither saw it, you know. But anyways, the game goes on. So now I can keep the engine open. I don't recall there are other surprises, so let's just take it open. King takes g7. I don't have the dark square bishop anymore, which may cause some problems, but maybe better was to play bishop h8. I just chill. But okay, my opponent played bishop d5. Yawn. Here I just captured. My opponent captured. And here I wanted to play knight c4. I contemplated for a while. I didn't know exactly what to do on queen g5, which is really nothing. But after knight takes d5, I was afraid of knight f5 check, which is a wild move, but it's just there, right? And the engine is saying, don't worry about it. You know, the third best move is a mate for white, but don't worry about it. Now, of course, if I go here, there is check, crucial, and then mate. I just don't go there. There is king g8. The problem is that here there is check, right? And here, you know, if I go to g7, which the engine is so happy to suggest, well, they just repeat. And if I go to f8, which is the way to not repeat, because if I go to h8, there is a fork. I was seeing all these things like from a big distance. I was seeing all these things after bishop d5, right? He played bishop d5, and I was considering all that. And I mean, I have to play king f8, right? And then he takes, and there is some pressure, some, I don't know. I wasn't like liking this too much, and of course, you know, the engine doesn't care, but as a human, like, you're thinking maybe I'm missing something, and the problem is if you're missing something in that positions there, you're dead lost. So I was really afraid, so I just took this knight 2, and yeah, he captured, and I played knight c4. Now what's the difference? The difference is that if he plays this now, I actually have e5. And you have to understand that here is all about the pawn structure. After knight c4 or whatever, here he has this weak pawn on c2, he could really never play c4. And so I'm about to just triple up, quadruple up, quintuple up, and just win this pawn. And so, you know, if he goes for this idea, now I have e5. I usually can get away with e5, but here I can because I'm attacking the queen. This is a very typical idea. So en passant is not possible. And here knight f5 is definitely a move, but now I can just move, and it's clear that it's not a big deal. You just go here, and now his pawn is weak. My pawns aren't. And again, at first I thought, oh yes, knight g4, I'm in trouble, but no, because the queens are still looking at each other. And so here he has to like go back in a little bit of a weird way. And I'm in time to consolidate. The engine is suggesting f5. I didn't saw this from the distance, but of course it's a move that you're able to consider. It's nothing insane. And yeah, my knight is amazing, and the engine agrees. This is better for black. This is clearly better for black. But none of that happened. He played correctly queen c3, which sets up checkmate, winning the queen, you choose. So I played king g8. And here, as you can see, white is slightly better. White is slightly better. So far, my opponent is outplaying me. I didn't manage to really get what I wanted. And he has a problem, though. He has a problem. This pawn is weak, and my king is weak. However, his pawn is weak. If he is not able to capitalize either on my pawn and on my king, then he not only has this weakness, actually, I didn't say the most important thing, this pawn is weak too. Because this is not a backward pawn, it's not an isolated pawn, but it's like it was. Because if he can never play c4, then we can consider this an isolated pawn. I don't know why I made that arrow. And isolated pawn, are attackable, must be attacked, and can be win. So I wanted to win it. So he played rook e2, which the engine agrees in saying it's not that big of a move. A4 is better, which now, bro, analyzing back with the engine is so bad. Like A4, I'm looking at it for the first time. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. It's unbelievable. Like you just put pressure. It's just so obvious. Unreal. Unreal. He played the much more human rook e2, trying to double up. But playing human these days, you know, the engine is like, no. Okay, here I play knight b6. I'm just trying to win this pawn. And the worst part is, and this I saw when I played bishop takes d5 actually, I had to calculate a bunch of things. All of these variations with queen g5, all of these variations without queen g5, it was quite difficult to navigate all that. But basically I saw the idea of taking with the pawn and playing the knight on c6. Mine will be on c4. But I also saw the idea that after knight b6 I can win this pawn, and even if he takes back with a queen, then I may be able to win the knight. So I didn't calculate everything, but as an idea I realized that even if he is able to plant a knight on c6 is not the end of the world. For example, here knight c6, queen c7, queen d7, is there a difference? Queen c7 is much better apparently. The problem is there is knight takes d5 at the right time, right? For example, this knight takes d5. Knight here doesn't work, the queen is defended. And yeah, that's just removing the defender. That's what I'm talking about when I say if he's not able to capitalize. So anyways, he played queen f3, defending the pawn that was under attack, and also knight c6 is a little bit more looked. Now I played rook c8, putting pressure on this pawn, and most importantly, because you may say, okay, if knight c6, then the knight becomes weak, and knight takes d5 may be a nice tactic, but what if he ignores it? Well, if he ignores it, I will just attack this pawn, and it's surprisingly super difficult to defend. Let's say it's impossible. So he played rook a to e1. And here I played queen d7. Of course, if I just fell asleep at the wheel and I allow him knight c6 with tempo on the queen, then I'm lost. So I have to play queen d7. And indeed, he played knight c6, which I was very happy to see. And when these things happen, like you see a move, you see it's wrong, and you see it on the board, you're like, I'm happy on one side. But on the other side, you're like, wait a second. Am I missing something? So that was my concern. And let me click this button again. I'm making this video super long, but those games were very interesting. I don't know what to tell you. But we're almost at the end. And the end is the worst thing ever. Like, literally the last two moves of the last game are like insane. So knight takes d5, queen takes d5. Usually, you know, YouTubers use this technique to make retention last longer. But actually, no, the last two moves of the last game are the wildest. Like, it's literally how it is. So anyways, again, as you can see, I'm sacrificing a piece, but not really. I'm removing the defender, and there are no tactics involving knight takes e7, because from d5 the knight sees this. And I saw these tactical ideas when he played bishop d5. It's not about calculating everything, it's about you understand generally how the tactical nuances are. So, and then it happens concretely, you know. I was very tense up, because you may say, okay, you saw as a tactical idea these ideas, but how did you know that they would actually work in your favor? I didn't know. That's why I was quite stressed out. And my opponent could have played better and actually have an advantage, in fact. So it just worked out. Queen takes, rook takes. And yes, he wins here, but the problem is after rook takes, which I saw all of this, I get to get in. And that's just problematic. And here he played rook a7, and here is when I'm like, what do I do? Do I simplify like that or no? But then I'm like, no, I want to keep my pieces active. I'm up a pawn, a passed pawn. Let me check, so the king is a little bit more outside. And let me just go back. So that's what I played. He went here, I went there. He went here. If he goes here, I have king f6. All of these moves I saw. king f6, and I'm like, this should be better for me. Now, it's funny because when I was here, I'm like, okay, this is, humanly speaking, is probably winning, but I know that if I throw it into an engine, it's gonna say 0, 0, 0. But actually, no, the engine says black is likely better. If even the engine, in an endgame of pawns and king and a rook, tells you that you're slightly better, you gotta believe it. Because the engine is always so harsh in endgames, it's like, it's always a draw, it's always a draw, it's unbelievable. Unless it's like a swing of the evaluation. That's also the other possibility. It's either flat or a super swing. So king e4, king e6. I have to prevent king d5, at least I thought I had to. Yeah, apparently rook c2 is just, yeah, rook c2 is a double attack. I saw this move, but this also allows the opponent to do things. So you never know. Anyways, king e6. g4 logical, preventing h5, but now rook c4 check. And here is, I think this was very, like, an important moment. King d3 apparently is the worst move ever. I don't know why is that. What? But in my mind that was the only move. Turns out I was totally off. He played king e3. Which to me was the worst move, because if you play king d3, you are close to the queen side. If you play king to f3, you're close to the king side. If you play king e3, you're just in the middle of nowhere, right? That's what I calculated. King d3 here, 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 takes, and this at least defends the pawn. And again, the engine is like, no, you're totally win, bro. Okay, but I don't like to allow this kind of counterplay, right? And of course it's totally crashing, but still. You get paranoid. But after king e3, the same variations occurs, except he cannot now defend the pawn. And the engine, which is the engine, is like, now this is actually easier to draw for white. But in my mind, the fact that I get to keep this pawn, yes, I'm not winning this pawn or anything, but he doesn't have a pass pawn on his own. To me, that's good. Like, humans are happier when opponent doesn't have counterplay, at the cost of some advantage even. He played h4, which is wrong. Here, I think rook a3 was required. The engine thinks king f3 is even better, which makes a lot of sense. But rook a3 prevents this idea. Here I'm threatening to play check and win the pawn. He saw that, so he played h4. The problem is, I still do this, and I win the pawn anyways. There is no way to defend this pawn. For example, king g5 is a variation, but then I have a check. And if he goes back, there is check, and that's it. This is over. Rook takes, king takes, g5, and then I'm gonna put my rook here, take this, go back, and just do whatever I want. That's easy. In those endgames, you want to find a situation where you are easily winning. Play rook a1, I took, you went king g3, I played g5. He played f4. Here I calculated a little bit of a variation, h5. If he takes here, takes, just completely wins the game. He took here, but now I take this way. And if he pushes, I go here. So he went here, but I calculated everything. He has to take, and here I go here, and that's just it. He could have resigned here, but remember, this is a team event. And so, you always try to do everything you can. So I totally understand my opponent. You just try to offer some resistance. That's it. Here, I'm sure that pushing the pawns win, but I wanted to have like the lazy approach, so I just play king f8, and if he goes here, I just go here. He has to go back, and then it's easier for me to just take the opposition. But I play king e4, and if I go here, he may go here, and then it's me to move again. So I just played here. That's the laziest approach ever in the world. They play king d5, and now I play king e7. If he goes here, I just go here. And eventually we will find in a situation like this, with the king here, it will be me to move. And if I go here, it's a stalemate, but I will have this pawn. I just play a move, and then I win. And that's why he resigned. This is just too easy to win. So I won. My team won this match too, not 4-0, but I think 3-1, because two of us won,
and then the other 2 drew. So 2 plus half is 3, and half plus half is 1. So 3 against 1. And we were the strongest team at the moment. So now we are either, I think we are again second, okay, and the opponent team is first. So, but with some distance to the others. So who wins this wins the tournament. And again, it's like the football series, right? We are in the bottom series, and we want to go to the series, I should say, and we go to the highest if we win. So winning this is huge. We get promoted as a team, as a chess club, if we win this. So this was high stake game, and bro, it was bad. Let me click this button again, or I'll disappear into the obscurity. Let's just go for it. I don't know why I'm from the black perspective. I was playing with white pieces. So let's just go. Let's just go. So e4, e6, the French. The French is another one that it always happens. And not just a random French, but exactly this French here, with knight f6. Here I had to take a moment to kind of remember the theory, but I did. So this is all theory. Takes. Here he plays queen b6, I castle. Usually they play queen b6 first. If he takes, he didn't, but if we takes, we basically transpose into a very well-known line that I studied. Very well known, not that I know it very well, it's just a very well-known line. And here there is queen a4, there is a3, a couple of interesting moves. Queen a4 prevents knight c5, and a3 prepares b4, because this bishop is basically dead, so they want to play c5, but here you're just gonna play b4, and there's nothing. So these are very basic ideas that I just gave you. You shouldn't trust them just blindly. So anyways, bishop e7. And now that bishop e7 is played, I'm like, okay, maybe now he's actually threatening this pawn. I don't know. So let me just play knight b3. He played a5, trying to play a4 and win the pawn. So I played a4. All typical ideas. If this bishop gets out of the equation, I have rook a3, rook here, because the idea is to attack on the king side. He knows that, and so instead of castling and giving me some free attack, he played queen back to d8. And here I just play rook e1. He played b6. And this is where I started to go crazy. So you can see not the best move, but the next move that I played. Listen, guys, it was just bad. Let me turn on some lights, by the way, because otherwise you cannot see me. Not that it matters. What matters is that you see chess. But so here I'm like, okay, this knight is undefended. What if I play bishop takes h7? And if he takes with the rook, I have a double attack. Now, unfortunately, bishop takes h7 doesn't work. Now, I'm not gonna stay here and explain you all the details, because I know that there is also the idea of playing g6, but I'm like, if he does, then I take, and then he has two weak pawns, and there are ideas like knight g5 and stuff, and queen c2 check. So I saw a billion lines, but I'm not trying to find excuses, but I realized I was a little bit tired during the game, because every time that I played a move, I was expecting my opponent to play some moves, and I always missed them. And usually this doesn't happen. When it happens, it's because I'm tired. So it's not an excuse, I was tired. So bishop b4, rook f1, g6. Again, there are a billion lines, but let's just go with it. Knight g5, defending the bishop. The only line that I want to show you, which is very pretty, my opponent played knight f8, which is just game over basically for me, so very well done. Bishop e7 is a very nice looking line. Here I have knight takes e6, the queen is literally trapped, so f takes e6 is forced, and now check. The only move is here, and now queen f3 check. That's why when he attacked my rook, I didn't go to e2, but I go to f1. I couldn't go to e3 either, because otherwise knight g5 wouldn't have been possible. So that's why I play rook f1. So king f8, now there is queen f3, and here, if he moves here or here, there is checkmate. Like, that's very cool. I saw this. I'm actually very proud of myself for seeing this. And here he has to like give away a piece back, but at this point, you know, you're giving away a piece back, and your king is exposed, and this is weak now, and now material is equal, but I have a super strong attack, so that's great. I don't even think the material is equal. I think I won a couple of pawns in the process, and taking this pawn maybe actually be super dangerous, you know. But anyways, of course, my opponent didn't play that. He played knight f8, and this is over. Because now this is defended, this is attacked 2 times, and that's it. I can pretty much resign. I didn't. I'm like, you know, in the spirit of Grandmaster Naroditsky, which, by the way, without him, I wouldn't have had half of the results I had in this game. So check him out. You know, the idea is you sacrifice the piece for 2 pawns. So materially, strictly speaking, you are down like a pawn and something. Now, unfortunately, this position just doesn't justify it. In fact, it's really bad. But I tried my best. I played f4, trying to go for some counterplay. Knight e7, very well. Stopping f5, bishop d2, bishop takes, knight takes. My idea is to redirect my knight to better places. And after knight f5, this is why I'm saying I was tired. After knight f5 is threatening this fork, and I'm like, I'm a genius. I played rook a3, right, to defend, but I realized, oh no, he actually is also attacking the pawn. After he played it, I realized. So I was considering something else, but then I'm like, let's just activate my pieces. And now I'm losing yet even another pawn. So all of a sudden I have a piece for a pawn, and that's just over. I try to activate my pieces. Here I'm saying, you know, yes, he doesn't have the dark square bishop, so I may try to infiltrate the dark squares and still have some counterplay. This knight is untouchable because, again, the absence of the dark square bishop. So I try to do that. Rook h4 is not really a big deal. There is g3. And that's bishop a3, rook c1. I'm trying to do that. He finds another very nice tactic, knight takes c5. Here I consider the billion moves, but there's nothing. I consider this, but there is this. Of course, if you take, there is this, which I ended up doing anyways. But there are no tactics. Like, there is nothing. There's nothing. So f takes c5, my opponent captured, rook a to c3. And as you can see, at least I'm like, maybe I can create something. But it's totally lost. This is totally lost. And I felt so bad because we were all playing, we have to win this, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing like my teammates are not doing too well. I know that if we draw, we have extremely, like all of a sudden, I don't know if we can win anymore. Like if we win, we basically have it guaranteed mathematically. If we draw, maybe, you know, in the secondary ways you can determine whether a team wins or not. Maybe we lose there and we don't get promoted because only one team get promoted in this section. And I'm like, bro, I'm just losing. I felt horrible. Horrible. My opponent played rook h4. I played rook c7. Trying to checkmate, and my idea was, okay, rook h4 is pretty clear what my opponent wants to do. He want to go rook f4, but then I have this which threatens mate, then he goes here again, then I go here again, and if he stops here I may go here or even here, threatening mate. I have some ideas, but then a cold shower reached me. My opponent played queen f4. And by the way, rook f4 also wins. It's just, you know, humanly speaking, you still see some moves. After queen f4 is over, like, also humanly speaking. For the engine is always over, but you know what I mean. Queen f4 just lights off. Because not only he is attacking the queen, but he's also threatening this check. And if I just trade the queens, which I didn't do, this is just easily winning for my opponent. And that's what you want to avoid. It's okay if the opponent is winning. I mean, it's not okay, but you know what I mean. It's okay, but if it's easily winning, that's it. So I play queen a3, and I'm like, okay, I'll have to go through queen takes h2. And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, queen takes h2 is winning for my opponent. I know that. However, if for whatever miracle he fails to checkmate me, which is very difficult, but if for whatever reason he fails to checkmate me, and I'm able to reach a2 or a1 or b1 or whatever, possibly a2, because here and here I may still get some checks. If I'm able to somehow find myself on a2, okay, and he has to move even, but he doesn't have a queen to go on the dark squares, then it's going to be forced mate, right? Now you're probably thinking that's impossible. I know, that's what I also thought, because I'm sure there are mates here. But I was just hoping again. If I was playing by myself, I think I would have actually resigned. But I was playing for the team. I couldn't resign. Even just psychologically, because I would have been the first to finish. And if we finish the last match and the guy resigns, I couldn't accept this. And no, actually, I think a teammate of mine already finished and he won, so that was great. That was great. But if I'm like resign, I was seeing that my teammate here was playing, and he was playing like some good game. He had some good chances. But if he sees me resigning, maybe he get, you know, oh no, he resigned, and then he get depressed and he loses, right? I'm like, I need as many people as possible to win in my team, because if we draw, maybe we don't pass. And if we lose, definitely we don't pass. So I just wanted to delay the game as much as possible. So he played queen takes h2, and here I had like 2 minutes or something. I let the clock run to like 5 seconds. Every move I played, I let the clock run to 5 seconds. So I'm like taking 30 seconds every move. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to just say out like I resign or just shake hands so my teammate sees that I've resigned. I want first them to win, and then I can resign, so they don't get psychologically influenced. So I play king f2, knowing that this is totally losing. He played rook f4, king e1, king g1, and now it's a mate in 3. Like, it's just over. Because you may say, why didn't you go... well, king e1 is the best move after queen f3, but again, queen f3 is just easily winning then. So I have to play this, and here, you know, king g1 is fine, king d2. Here my opponent played a little bit of a weird move. He played queen f2 check, which is totally winning. He delays mates a little bit. You know, queen take g2 is better because it removes this pawn. Now you may say, how is this pawn important? Well, you will notice the rook is on f4, and after queen f2, my king goes on c3, and the point is, it doesn't have a rook f3 anymore, which would, of course, just straight up win the game on the spot. There are many other ways to win, it's not a big deal, but yeah, rook f3 would have been lights off immediately, you know. For example, here, queen takes g2 check. If I go back, right, there is checkmate, thanks to the bishop. And if I move up, anywhere really, I can't really anywhere, he just wins the rook, right? So this is just very easily winning. There is also a mate in 2, but we don't talk about that. But yeah, queen f2 just gave me some slight hope, but of course, you know, just, yeah, there's nothing. I'm just totally lost, mate in 11. The engine is recommending, you know what, I know it's forced mate, but just prevent this completely. Just play rook b4, and then it's gonna be checkmate. My opponent played queen e3 check, which is totally fine. I played king c2, and here, you know, I'm expecting queen takes, and then it's easily winning. But my opponent played queen e4 check, okay. Here I play king b3, and here again, just, you know, just something happened here. My opponent played bishop c4 check, which, as you can see, loses a lot of the advantage. And after rook takes c4, which still threatens mate, my opponent had to actually sack the queen with check, so I don't have time for mate. And after rook takes c4 and rook takes c4, it just so happens that 2 rooks, more pawns, an exposed king and less pawns, this is completely winning for black. However, my opponent didn't play that. My opponent played d takes c4 check. And after king to a2, this is actually a forced mate for white, because my king is on a2, and I'm threatening mate, and his queen or the rook or any other piece can't access the dark squares, which is exactly what I was hoping in a crazy way after queen f4 and queen a3. I was literally hoping for this absolute crazy idea. And I knew that this was not happening, but it happened. And here my opponent resigned the game. Now you may say it's a mate in 4. It's a mate in 4 because of course the engine gives you this line, right? But there's actually no way to stop the mate here. There is no way. And so my opponent just resigned. Unreal. And so I won, and both of my teammates, they also won. We won 4-0 this last crucial round, and so we actually won the tournament. We won the tournament, we qualified. I will leave you the results in the link in the description, as well as my repertoire. That is just a Licha study, so it's completely free. Yeah, I'm very happy. Now, I don't know which future tournaments I will play, but I think I want to play something in April because I really want to play chess tournaments. But we'll see. I'll adjourn you guys later. For the time being, very happy. Congrats to the teammates. Congrats to everyone involved. And yeah, very nice games. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your chess.